When I walked into the attorney's conference room beside my auntie, the air felt dense enough to choke on. Every pair of eyes in that room snapped toward us, cold, judging, already treating us like intruders. It didn't matter that she was Henry's wife. To them, she was the outsider who didn't belong. The stale smell of old paper mixed with burnt coffee sat heavy in the air as chairs scraped across the floor, loud, intentional, meant to rattle her nerves. And it worked. I felt her hand tremble as she squeezed mine, her pulse fluttering like she was bracing for impact. Before Mr. Whitman could even sit, Marla shot to her feet. "Oh, look," she sneered loudly, projecting her voice across the room. "Claire showed up early to snatch whatever she could." Laughter exploded instantly, sharp, cruel. It ricocheted around the room, turning the walls into instruments of humiliation. Heat surged up my neck as Bruce leaned back in his chair and added, "She's pathetic, chasing money she doesn't deserve." "Mister." Whitman tried to cut in, but the room drowned him out with whispers and snickers, each one sharper than the last. Then I saw it. One of the cousins lifting their phone, recording Aunty like she was a circus act. "Look at the greedy widow," he said, zooming in on her face. "Hunting for scraps." Auntie's voice trembled. "Please, stop." They laughed harder. It felt like the oxygen was being sucked from the room. Bruce leaned forward, smirking. "Let's just get this over with. We all know who's going to embarrass herself trying to get the biggest cut." Auntie's shoulders folded inward, her head dropping like someone had pushed her down. And as I watched her shrink under their cruelty, something inside me broke. Quietly, violently. Mr. Whitman opened the folder on the table. I looked at every single person who mocked her, who called her greedy, who filmed her humiliation like entertainment. And I made a promise, silent, steady, unshakable. This moment would not be forgotten. As the room buzzed with whispers and cruelty, my mind drifted back to the life Auntie had lived long before this humiliation. I could almost smell her kitchen again, the warm scent of cinnamon bread drifting through the air, her soft voice floating around the room as she told stories that made me feel safe when the world outside felt too loud. I remembered the afternoons when neighbors knocked on her door, embarrassed, asking if she had extra groceries. She always handed them bags, eggs, rice, vegetables, pressing them into their hands with a smile and never once asking for a cent in return. That was who she was, a giver who asked for nothing. After my parents divorced, it was Auntie who filled the void. She patched up my broken confidence with little acts of love, a warm meal, a quiet hug, a whisper, "You're safe here." She became the anchor I didn't know I needed. But in this family, kindness never protected her. She was always the one they talked over at dinners, the one they brushed aside when decisions were made, a background character in a story she helped hold together. Uncle Henry saw her differently. He loved her in a way that lit her up from the inside, but the family never forgave her for it. They hated that he chose a woman who didn't come from money. To them, she was the outsider who should be grateful just to be tolerated. When Henry got sick, she cared for him with a devotion that broke her body and spirit. 3 years of sleepless nights, endless hospital visits, and painful choices. Not once did the family step in. Not unless they needed a favor or wanted something from him. I remembered the night I found her quietly slipping off her wedding bangles. She told me she was selling them to pay for Henry's new medication. She whispered, "Don't tell anyone. They'll just judge him for needing help." She carried that burden alone. After Henry died, the loneliness settled over her like a heavy coat she couldn't take off. Still, she cooked for the family on every holiday, showing up with dishes made from scratch. They ate her food, praised the flavor, and mocked her clothes behind her back. "Charity case," I had heard one cousin say once, not realizing I was in the hallway. They never knew she had sacrificed everything to keep Henry alive. They never cared to know. A memory surged up, one that had cut deeper than anything else. The night she came to my apartment, eyes swollen from crying. She had overheard Bruce and Marla saying Henry married below his worth, claiming she was lucky he even looked her way. I remember the way her voice cracked when she whispered, maybe they're right. I held her as she cried, and she admitted a fear she hadn't told anyone else. After he's gone, they'll treat me worse, like I never belonged. That night, I promised her I'd never let them hurt her again. I didn't know it would bring us to a lawyer's office where her worst fears were unfolding in real time. Watching her break under their laughter, every old wound rose up inside me. Every insult, every sacrifice she hid, every humiliation she carried alone. And somewhere beneath that grief, something shifted, hardened, solidified. The ache in my chest became resolved. A storm was coming, and this time I was ready to fight it with her. Bruce leaned forward before Mr. Whitman could say a word, slamming his palm on the table. "Skip the formalities," he barked. "Henry left everything to his blood relatives, which means me." He said it like it was already settled, like this entire meeting was just a formality before his victory lap. Marla's gaze slid over Aunty with a sneer. "Look at her outfit," she said loudly. "She dressed like she expected to walk away with the house today." The others chuckled, their eyes crawling over Aunty like she was some delusional intruder. I felt her flinch beside me. Her breath hitched, barely audible, but I felt it in my bones. And that tiny sound triggered the rest of them. They pounced. "She probably forced Henry to sign something while he was weak," one cousin whispered, not quietly enough to hide the venom. Mr. Whitman raised his voice sternly. "Accusations like that can carry legal consequences." But they didn't care. They never cared. Bruce pointed at Aunty as if she were a problem to be removed. "Show us the preliminary distribution list. She has no legal standing to be here anyway." A relative from the back added, "Why is she even in the room? She's disturbing the peace. Maybe she should wait outside." My fists tightened until my nails dug into my palms. They weren't just insulting her, they were surrounding her, boxing her in with words sharp enough to cut. I watched her shoulders tense, watched her shrink under the barrage, and rage simmered under my skin. Marla leaned forward with a cruel grin. "You're pathetic, Claire. Just leave before you embarrass yourself." Auntie's voice barely escaped her lips. Maybe I should." "No," I whispered sharply. "You're not going anywhere." Because I could see Bruce leaning back, smug, enjoying every second of her fear. He thought the battle was already won. He thought she would fold like she always had. But then Mr. Whitman reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. Thick, official, unmistakably marked with Henry's handwriting. The air shifted instantly. Relatives scoffed in unison. "Oh, please," Bruce said. Henry was too sick to think straight. Marla rolled her eyes. "This is going to expose who she really is. A gold digger pretending to mourn." Aunty closed her eyes slowly, pain tightening her entire face, her lips trembling as she tried to hold herself together. And as I stared at her, this woman who had given more love than she ever received, I felt something inside me lock into place. This would be the last time they made her feel small. The attorney cleared his throat, and the chatter instantly thinned into a nervous buzz. Then he said it. Henry had submitted a revised will just 2 months before his death. The room shifted. It wasn't just silence, it was a sharp snap, like the whole place had been pulled tight. Chairs stopped creaking, breaths got held. Every insult they'd thrown at Aunty suddenly hung in the air, exposed. Bruce tried to cut in, puffing up like he owned the place. "Hold on, this is the first we're hearing of." But the attorney raised his hand, firm, unshaken. "Please sit. I am conducting the reading." Bruce froze, jaw working, but no sound coming out. Then the attorney opened the folder and read Henry's preamble. A letter he wrote to Aunty. Every word felt like it filled the room with weight. To Claire, the only person who stood by me without expectation. Auntie inhaled sharply beside me. The relative stared at the carpet, at the walls, anywhere but at her. Marla snapped, voice shrill. Oh, please, this is emotional manipulation. He wasn't even. The attorney didn't even look at her. He kept reading. Then it happened, the line that cracked the whole room open. I leave controlling interest of my entire estate to my wife, Claire. Gasps rolled through the room like a wave. Claire, Auntie's real name, hit the air like thunder after all their bitter little storms. Bruce shot to his feet so fast the chair clattered behind him. This is a forgery. Henry would never. The attorney clicked a button on his tablet, completely calm. It's authenticated, and here is the certified video recording. Everyone froze as Henry's face lit up the screen, clear, steady, unmistakably aware. In the recording, Henry looked straight into the camera, then straight through time into that room. If you're angry right now, he said, it means you never understood love. The room collapsed. All their accusations, all their snide whispers, gone, replaced by stunned, hollow quiet. Auntie lifted both hands to her mouth. Tears spilled before she could stop them. Hearing Henry's last message, it broke something open inside her, something she'd been holding together for far too long. My heart pounded as the attorney closed the tablet and handed her a thick folder. Deeds, account rights, business transfer documents, everything they mocked her for wanting, everything they swore she would never touch. A charge ran through the room, sharp, electric. Auntie, the woman they called greedy, selfish, manipulative, now legally owned everything. And for the first time that day, I felt it rising in my chest, a quiet, steady surge of victory. Bruce lurched forward like he could physically grab the will out of existence, his face red, spit gathering at the corner of his mouth. Reconsider this right now, he barked at the attorney. The attorney didn't even flinch. Take one more step, and I call building security. Bruce froze, fury shaking through him. Marla pointed a trembling finger at Auntie. She brainwashed Henry. She manipulated him when he was vulnerable. But the attorney cut her off with a single page. Henry underwent a psychiatric evaluation 3 weeks before signing this will. He was declared fully sound. Any accusation otherwise is baseless. That shut Marla up, at least for a moment. Auntie finally lifted her head. Her voice didn't quiver. Henry knew who cared for him. The room went still. I watched their faces twist, shock, disbelief, then the slow, sharp sting of understanding. So, they were finally seeing the woman they'd underestimated for years rise from the ashes they pushed her into. The attorney handed out certified copies of the will, each signature stamped, authenticated, indisputable, papers that turned their arrogance into dust. I stepped forward. I couldn't hold it back anymore. You weren't there, I said. Not one of you. Auntie fed him, bathed him, comforted him through every long night while you were out living your lives. Their silence was immediate, and it was the first honest thing they'd offered in years. Bruce tried again, voice cracking under the pressure. She can't manage an estate. She doesn't know business. She'll ruin everything. Auntie looked straight at him. Henry left me a full advisory team. Financial planners, legal counsel, and complete control. I don't need you to tell me how to run what he trusted me with. The humiliation they'd aimed at her swung back around, sharper and heavier. One by one, they grasped the truth. They inherited nothing. Not the money, not the properties, not the legacy. Nothing. Marla broke first, screaming, "This isn't fair. This isn't how it was supposed to go." Her words echoed the same cries Auntie once whispered into her pillow when they made her feel small, invisible, unworthy. Auntie inhaled deeply, her shoulders lifting, straightening. Her voice was calm, crystalline. "Oh, I owe you nothing." The attorney closed his folder with finality. The will is final, legally protected, there is no contest. That was it. The verdict they never expected. Relatives stood, hollow and ghost-like, shuffling out with no eyes to meet ours. Bruce slammed the door so hard the frame rattled, a final punctuation mark on their downfall. The moment the room emptied, Aunty sank into a chair. Not from defeat, but from release. Years of weight sliding off her shoulders, leaving her lighter than I had ever seen her. I drove Aunty home in the soft hush of evening, the sky melting into shades of gold. The light fell across her face as she stared out the window. Her expression caught somewhere between disbelief and relief. She kept whispering, almost to herself, "I can't believe he remembered me like that. I can't believe he thought of me until the very end." Her voice trembled every time she said it. When we reached the house, she went straight to Henry's old desk. She touched the folder the attorney had handed her. Deeds, rights, signatures, all the proof of love and trust she never got from Henry's family while he was alive. Her fingers traced the edges like she was afraid they might disappear. "I always feared they'd throw me out of my own home after he died," she confessed quietly. I thought I'd lose everything." I knelt beside her and said, "Henry trusted you more than anyone. He made sure you'd never be powerless again." The next morning, her phone buzzed with a message from Marla. A small share would be the right thing to do. We're still family. Aunty read it once, then she deleted it. No hesitation, no guilt. Her hands didn't even shake. Later, I drove her to meet the advisors Henry had arranged. Each one greeted her with respect, the kind she had deserved long before today. And I watched something shift inside her. For the first time, she moved through the world without shrinking, without apologizing for taking up space. She started spending afternoons in Henry's old workshop, clearing out dust and old tools, opening windows that hadn't seen sunlight in years. She told me she wanted to turn it into a community space, something he always hoped this place would become. Her voice carried strength now, not fear. Neighbors stopped by, admiring how she transformed the old room, how she stood a little taller each day. They didn't know the years she endured, the whispers, the side glances, the humiliations. But I did. One evening, I found her in the garden Henry planted, watering the roses with a soft, unburdened laugh. A sound so rare it made my chest tighten. "I feel safe," she said, looking at me through the fading glow of dusk. "For the first time, it feels like my life belongs to me again." And in that moment, I understood something deeper than anger or inheritance. Her revenge wasn't in taking anything from them. It was in reclaiming everything they tried to strip away, her dignity, her worth, her place in this home. She didn't win loudly. She won completely. I stand on Auntie's porch at dusk, the warm light spilling from her living room like a promise that life can bloom again after years of being stepped on. The cicadas hum in the background, and for a moment, I just let myself breathe. My mind drifts back to that room, the will reading, when they mocked her so openly. I can still see the way her shoulders curved inward, how small she looked under their accusations, and I can still feel the anger that rose in me, sharp and blinding. Then I think about Henry's video message, his steady voice breaking through years of silence, years where she carried the weight alone. His words didn't just expose the truth, they tore the mask off every lie they ever used to shame her. I see the relatives' faces again, the disbelief, the collapse of their arrogance, when they realize nothing they said could bury the truth anymore. That moment lives inside me like a spark. I imagine myself speaking directly to the camera, replaying the image of Aunty lifting her head at last, dignity settling back onto her like a crown she should have worn all along. Her strength didn't roar. It rose. I inhale the cool evening air, the story settling in my chest, heavy, meaningful, real. Oi. The lesson hits me harder than I expect. Sometimes the world misjudges the quietest people the most. Sometimes the ones they call greedy are the ones who spent their whole lives giving. Oh, and sometimes justice doesn't arrive in a fight. It arrives in the calm voice of a lawyer reading the truth out loud. If I could speak to everyone listening, I'd tell them this: never underestimate someone's quiet strength. Stand by the people who stood by you, even when no one else believed in them. Their battles are often invisible, but their courage is unforgettable. And with the sunset stretching behind me, painting everything gold, I finish with the final message. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Someone out there needs to hear this today.